Hey guys, today we're continuing our tube notching project, and what we're doing right now is mapping our tube flat wrap printouts to physical tubes. The first thing I have to do is use the miter saw to cut out the tubes that we need to the length that we need them to be. And then we're going to use the manual mill, and this is one of the bits for the manual mill, to draw lines on the tubes. And so here's our bit, here's our tube, there's the mill. We're going to use these blocks to make sure that our tube sits level in the mill. And the blocks actually, the way they do this is they've got a little V that is carved out in them, and you'll see it in just a second once we clean out all the chips, make sure the machine surfaces stay machined. The blocks have V's that the tube can sit in, and this allows the tube to be level with the floor instead of trying to guesstimate using just the two flat surfaces of the clamp. So we've got this little crank that we can use to clamp it all together, and I am just going to hold the tube here and inside the V's and then clamp it all down. I'll give it a few taps on the blocks to make sure that they stay in place. And once we put the bit in our mill, we are ready to go. And so the bit that we decided to use is actually an old punch. Since all we're doing today is trying to draw lines on the tubes to index them for this flat wrap, we decided to use an old punch because it's a little bit thicker and more resilient than a normal scribe. You want the spindle to be locked for this, which is in the up position for this lever. Make sure that it can't spin. And we're also going to use our x-axis to draw the line on the tube, and then we would just move this bit closer to the tube to actually do this. So here I am moving the z-axis, getting the bit really close to the tube, and you have to be careful here because you don't want it to press into the tube too much. You just want it to be pressed into the tube enough to draw a line, but not enough to cause a lot of stress on either the tube or the bit. Okay, everything looks good. I'll start moving the x-axis, and you'll see that a line is appearing on the tube. And then, we just do this for the entire length of the tube. And if you have a super long tube, you could just do this on the ends of the tube. You only need this as a reference for your flat wraps. And it looks like I have not made a super level surface, even though I tried to use the leveling blocks. And so it's causing me to have to go back and adjust the X or the Z axis in some places to get the line to stay for the entire duration of the tube. And once we do that, we can move the Z-axis up a little bit so we can grab our tube, move the X-axis over, and boom, we've got a tube with a line on it. Great. We're going to clean it off with some acetone. Acetone is a solvent, it's great because it fully evaporates after you clean things with it. So it's good to clean off things that you want to weld using acetone or isopropyl alcohol. Yeah, and so there's a lot of grease and stuff that are sometimes on tubes that you just buy as stock, and it's good to clean them sometimes, especially if you want to weld them, because the dirt and grime can sort of contaminate the welds, make your welds a little bit harder to do. And also, if you're concerned about flammable stuff like grease being on your tubes when you're welding, then it's a good idea to clean them for that reason as well. So you don't have to be really meticulous with this. Honestly, all I did was use some acetone on a cloth to get off just like the top surface of grime, and that's enough. And so now we're going to move on to taping our flat wraps onto the tube. Need some scissors, some tape, and we also need our flat wrap printout, which I bring into the frame very aggressively. So we're going to cut out these flat wraps, and you want to be mindful of the dimensions that you've referenced in this drawing. And so you've got two lines that are a certain distance apart according to the flat wrap, and you need to cut along these lines. Don't cut them off. If your line is not where your tube flat wrap is, then you need to make sure you take note of that. But you can cut off the dimension. You don't need that part anymore as long as you know what it is, and you're going to use that like on your tubes. I've cut my tubes to the exact length of all of these dimensions, and so all I have to do is tape these flat wraps on the ends of my tubes. And now I also cut out the label. I'm trying to keep track of the tubes. You could use a more meaningful label, but part 4 works for this project. And so now I'm lining up the ends of the flat wrap with the line that we just made on the mill. And that's why we did that, is because we need both flat wraps to line up with the same line for it to be accurate to the CAD. And then all you do is just use some tape, just do this, stick it on. Even better would be using sticker paper, but I guess maybe Scotch tape is a little more forgiving than that, and cheaper. So whatever works, really. And you just do this to both sides of the tube. And I think I also go ahead and tape on my label to try to keep track of this tube. It would be pretty hard to know which is which, like after mixing them all together without the label.